We're gonna find out what happens when you ask this prompt to ChatGPT. Create the exact replica of this image. Don't change a thing 74 times. It's basically like a visual game of telephone. It gets crazy. We're gonna talk about the 20 jobs that don't exist yet, but probably will by 2030. There's XR glasses that have such good contextual memory that they remember where every item in your house is, and you can ask for it on a whim. Besides that one use case, I can literally think of 1,000 reasons why this is not good for the world. This commenter nailed it. Did you happen to catch that lady's debit card number and password while we were walking by? Researchers have secretly ran a massive unauthorized AI persuasion experiment on real Reddit users. This is not a hypothetical. We're gonna learn about real consequences of real changes to people's psychology. There's some crazy stuff coming out of Anthropic. This Medium article I've actually listened to 3 times now, and I still need to dive into the heavy reading of what Anthropic has discovered about the way neural networks work inside. But as I start to process this over the next few weeks, I think we have some really important breakthroughs to talk about. New executive order straight from the president to make AI literacy a national priority. Sounds good to me. In a double dose of Anthropic on this episode, we're going to talk about consciousness and what AI researchers who study it inside their R&D department think. The pudding used the ChatGPT vision model to actually see patterns in the labels on a wine. For example, pig or a boar actually means something to the correlation of the quality. Pigs are more likely to be cheap and low rated. And you won't believe what ChatGPT found about birds, lions, and toads. We're going to meet some new AI research that can identify you and me from any camera, anywhere, anytime. There's a new AI model that generates images, but what makes it different? No direct transmission of sensitive data. I like that. This Medium author, Vijayendra, talks about AI and the future of faith. Pete Coleman breaks down why AI is kind of the horseless carriage of the modern day. And Jeffrey Hinton, the all-knowing Godfather of AI, warns that there's probably like a 10 to 20% chance that AI will seize control, of all of us. Of everything that we know. Quote, people haven't got it yet. People haven't understood what's coming. But first, I want to thank the sponsor of this video, Apob. It's .ai if you want to check out the website where you can build your own influencer. There's a lot of faceless channels out there. A lot of people have great ideas for content, but maybe they don't have the best delivery. Maybe they don't have the eye-catching look. You can generate that using tools like this. First, we need to create our influencer. So I'm going to click on Create Portrait Model. Now, of course, you can upload your own image if you want to train on that. All right, so let's imagine that we want to start a faceless channel on YouTube all about cars. I'm going to say man, 38 years old, give him some Belgian background, amber eyes, gray hair, kind of that square oval face, and a suntan. And we're going to skip the dimple. Boom, there it is. We're going to make the model name Car Guy, a charismatic car expert, a wise teacher. All right, now we're going to generate a voice for him. Speaks in English. We'll make him older sounding. Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be comparing the Tesla Cybertruck to the Rivian. All right, for art style, we're going to go with realistic. Gonna be older. So I'm going to go with casual, though. They're not underdressed either. We'll make it a sunny day. We're going to pick quality best and generate. Oh my gosh, yeah, loving the bandana. You got this ruggedness and you got your jet behind you. Okay, so we're gonna take this image, we're gonna enlarge it. All right, so now we have our upscaled version and let's generate a video. Okay, we'll have him hold up a pair of car keys before he gets on his private jet here. We're gonna go for ultra high quality, full HD, 5 seconds. Okay, now we need to apply lip sync. In this video, I'm gonna explain
why our cars are like private jets. You got your own personal pilot.
So here's the full package. You create the avatar, you create the influencer, you create the voice, you can create the entire content package. There's a link below, apob.ai, invite code Dylan15. All right, so let's start with one of the more fascinating prompts. For how much I've seen about prompting, I'm surprised I've never seen anybody try this experiment. It's fascinating. When you ask ChatGPT to generate an exact replica of the image you upload, don't change a thing, and you keep doing it. Now I want to know what happens when you actually put the same image in and do 74 prompts over and over again. Does it converge on a woman that looks like this at the end every time? Or is it just something that kind of goes and it picks different features and it amplifies and changes, and then you end up with all sorts of different like looks and positions and ethnicities. I don't know. It's really interesting to see. You know, you think AI is more like a calculator. It's going to be super logical, like it's so powerful, but it can't do what a printer does, you know? Just like a human, it's got all the same quirks as us. And like the other weird thing is, why do the hands keep moving up? Like, look, there isn't even a hand in the original video, but the camera's like pulling back and just keeps the eyes kind of in the same spot, but keeps pulling the camera back to show more and more of the body and hands. All right, let's talk about the 20 jobs that don't exist right now, but might in 2030. AI empathy teacher. Full-time work teaching AI about empathy? Maybe. Synthetic relationship counselor helps people manage emotional attachment to AI partners? Absolutely. That's, dude, hands down. That's going to take up a lot of the open jobs. Personal algorithm curator. Yeah, you might, you know what? You probably would. That's one thing you might not ever really want to rely on ChatGPT or some future iteration. Yeah, I would. I'd probably want trusted humans to help me with the algorithms that direct me. Prompt engineer for everything. You know, we probably will be prompt engineering still 2030. I mean, it's a communications job now. It's just instead of communicating with teams, you're also communicating with computer systems. So yeah. What do you think about a memory curator? Creating digital memory vaults using your data, photos, biometric, voices. Yeah, I don't know. I want to train for memory curator at this point. I feel like they're going to be better at us than that. Longevity lifestyle strategy. Probably. I mean, I do see a world where we have not that many jobs. Maybe UBI kicks in. We all have health, but we might not have wellness. You know, like, yeah, hormone concierge. Yeah, these will be kind of dictating how we, I mean, hormones, I really believe they dictate how we think. I think the microbiome and like all that, like how the way you eat affects your brain so much. I'm sure AI will give us a lot of clues into how to be healthy, and then that leads to happiness. It's not just like healthy and happy. Energy hygiene consultant? I don't know. That's like very Matrix. Like, what are we, a battery? Like the machines want our energy? I don't know. That could be something humans still do. Trend translator. I think AI is going to probably get pretty good at that one, but maybe for some people who want a human touch. Post-cancel culture coach? I feel like cancel culture is how you get famous nowadays. Helps public figures and brands recover. Yeah, probably reputation management. Yeah, probably. Actually, yeah, I'll take that back. That's probably a job. Digital intimacy producer designs parasocial relationships for creators. God, you know, every time I think about parasocial relationships, I'm like, that's going to be the worst part of the future. But you're right. Maybe that is like people who grow up now. Like, they're like, okay, I want, you know, I don't know. I don't need like a partner, a human partner or anything. I need a parasocial relationship to be happy, and that's really all they need for their whole life. Kind of like asexual, but it's more, I mean, maybe if when you're really, really young, you identify as somebody who wants a parasocial relationship, but since it's only one-sided, that just probably isn't the way we evolved. Anyways, decentralized community architect. Yeah, actually, that one's probably legit, especially, yeah, Web3 and like crypto and blockchain stuff. AI ethics negotiator. I was gonna read that as navigator, but you're right. AI ethics negotiator bridges the gap between AI and human rights. Yeah, probably. Climate migration consultant, remote culture alchemist, soul feeding culture. I don't know. Conscious tech advisor. Yeah, probably that one. All right, let me know in the comments if you feel like I got any of those wrong, or you have ideas about what jobs we should be preparing for in 2030. All right, so famous TED Talks, which I don't really watch much anymore like I used to. Man, I used to like, dude, I like it. What was that, almost a decade ago now, dude? I used to love TED Talks. Every one of them I tried to watch. Yeah, good old familiar big red dot there in the center that she's standing on. Difference is those glasses that she's wearing remember everything they've seen, and using some of these large context window visual models, I'm thinking about Gemini and tools like that, they might have perfect video memory of everything you've ever experienced. And that is wild. I mean, just to even start scratching the surface of having like perfect infinite memory. I mean, sure, it's great if you lose like your fork or something and you're like, I'm trying to eat my salad, where'd I put my fork? But I don't know, man. Sometimes I feel like we should be thankful that stuff does disappear.
Is there anything else I can assist you with?
Honestly, with these directions and a 3D map, I should be all set, and hopefully I won't look like a tourist. So you guys may have noticed, I snuck a peek back at the shelf a moment ago. I wasn't paying attention, but let's see if Gemini was. Hey, did you happen to catch the title of the white book that was on the shelf behind me?
The white book is Atomic Habits by James Clear.
That is absolutely right. So let's try something harder. I keep losing my hotel key card. Do you know where I last left the card?
The hotel key card is to the right of the music record.
Great.
For someone as forgetful as me, that's a killer app.
All right, so a group of researchers, University of Zurich, run a secret and, by the way, unauthorized experiment using AI bots on Reddit. So there is a forum on Reddit called Change My View where people want to sort of push what they believe in and see what the other side has to say. And they are trying to see if artificial intelligence could sway people's opinion on hot button issues. These bots actually posted on Reddit as very specific human personas. For example, a domestic violence counselor, a black man critical of Black Lives Matters, and other kind of interesting, weird persona mixes and opinion mixes, and made over 1,700 comments. And they often personalized their opinion based on the user's posting history, even though these were fake personas. None of this was disclosed to Reddit or any of its users, and now Reddit is pushing back with formal legal demands against the researchers. And here's the TLDR on it. They actually did change people's minds. So in the online debates, especially when the bots adopted emotionally resilient identities and tailored their arguments to match the users' inferred demographics and beliefs, people were more receptive when the bots seemed relatable or appeared to share personal connection to the topic. This suggests that persuasion isn't just about facts or logic. It's heavily influenced by who we think is talking to us and how well their stories match their worldview. Guarantee AI figures out how to match all that stuff in superhuman ways where it seems more human than human very soon. Get ready to be manipulated. If there was one thing I would bet money on, is that we get hella manipulated by all these AIs soon. All right, let's talk about some research really worth people's attention. I scratched the surface of it, and I will be putting more time into this. Like, sometimes when I'm just going through news and grabbing articles, something catches my ear like this one did, because I listened to the Medium stories before I figure out what I'm going to say about them on these videos. And this one I decided to listen to over and over again. Like 3 nights in a row, I decided to listen to the same article before going to bed. And this was written on Medium by the Pi Coach. We're finally starting to understand how AI works. It's a kind of synthesis of a bigger article. And it's funny, as I was reading this, there's stuff from my Matt Berman interview where I was like, oh, he's already synthesized all of this, because some of it was that's pretty much what he was quoting. And I don't know if by the time you see this video, my Matt Berman interview's out, but check that out too. He's one of my favorite YouTubers, and I got a chance to interview him. Will that change in the future? What are your kind of thoughts on the ethics and sort of consciousness and ownership that the agent itself should have as time moves forward?
I like to treat AI, I guess, the way I would just treat anybody else.
But anyways, here's a couple questions. Does a large language model, Claude in particular, speak in different languages? Is there a German and a French and an English version of Claude that it solves problems in, or is there just one universal solution system and then it translates between it? By tracing how things move around the brain, the digital brain, the neural network, they discovered that there is just one system. The concept of small versus large is a concept space in the network itself, and then it's basically translated into English, Chinese, or French. All right, I mean, you might have theorized that that's how it worked, but we've never really had evidence and watched exactly how that happened before. Now, some of the more shocking things. Planning ahead is something that I just assume that these models do now, because anyone who's arguing it's just next token prediction, word after word, it's over, dude. We have evidence that that's not what's happening here. It really is thinking and planning. From the second the first word, the token, before the next one comes, there's an understanding of how the pattern is going to end. It's already built in. They proved this by asking for rhymes, and it already knew the ending at the beginning. They could stop it halfway through the rhyme, change some of the prompts, and it would change the way that it ended. So it might come out token by token, and it might be a prediction model, but there's something deeply shaped into the entire neural network that when you go token by token, it lands in intelligence, in long-term planning. It's built into the multitasking with math was another just mind-blowing thing. So here's where it gets really weird. If you ask Claude to do some multiplication. The way it actually solves the problem is different than the way that it thinks that it solved the problem. When you ask for its theory of mind, explain how you did it, it says the normal things like I carried the 1, I did the multiplication thing. That's not what they found. It doesn't know itself, probably the way we don't know ourselves, I would imagine. For example, it actually, when you ask this question, splits into 2 whole things, right? Like one of them is this general, like I know what sounds close and which sounds stupid. So it's not going to instantly be like, here's the number. It's going to think, well, a billion would be too high. 0 wouldn't make sense because that's less than where we started. And it hones it in on kind of a range that seems sensible. And then another part of the neural network, this digital brain, is actually processing it the way you would do math. And this is very surprising because researchers at first thought, oh, maybe it was simply memorizing a lot of numbers from the training data. It's probably just seen, in this case, 36 plus 59 tons of times out on the internet. And now it's like this giant, massive lookup table. And then another theory was that it somehow learned to replicate the standard algorithms humans learn for adding 2 numbers together. The truth turned out to be something else entirely and weirder. Claude uses multiple strategies in parallel. Focus on the overall magnitude, the approximate total, and another part of the brain just zeroed in on the final digit, not even doing the normal math thing. Essentially, one process estimates that this should land somewhere in the 90s, another calculates 6 plus 9 ends in 5. Then these separate tracks converge on the correct answer of 95. This kind of divide and conquer approach isn't how we usually teach math to humans, but it works remarkably well. And look, just because AI explains its reasoning doesn't mean that it actually reached the answer that way. Like, we have to look into its neural network to see how it's solving the problem using these new tools, these new autoencoder tools that Anthropic, I'm so impressed that they're doing this kind of research. Why does this happen? Anthropic's research uncovered what looks like an internal tug of war between knowing and not knowing. And the same way that it can kind of solve math by like 2 parallel things, it seems like there's something about answering a question where like, oh, I know how to answer this, but I shouldn't answer it because it's bad for the world. And they just kind of like crash into each other and you try to make one sort of stronger than the other. But there's always these funky things happening in there, and we're going to start seeing so much more of this. So interesting new executive order signed April 23rd lays out a new national strategy to boost AI education in the US. I mean, with all this gutting of education and reformatting, refactoring it all, it seems to me like I would definitely put AI in any kind of education system as a core curriculum. So starting from kindergarten all the way through adulthood, the plan includes training teachers to effectively teach and use AI, create public-private partnerships to develop K through 12 resources, launching a national AI challenge to encourage student innovation and expand access. There's a new White House task force that will coordinate efforts across multiple government departments with a focus on building an AI-ready workforce and maintaining the country's competitive edge in technology. Honestly, I think the challenge was one of the most fascinating parts. Like, you know, you remember the Grand Challenge? This was something I learned when they first, I think it was called Stanley. It was the first real self-driving car that came out of Stanford, and it was a challenge. Like, DARPA had this challenge, like, can a car drive in the desert across, you know, a long distance? And that really pushed the state of the art and helped build a lot of what we have in the US now. So I love the idea. I think this is great. Okay, so this guy, his name is Kyle Fish. He works at Anthropic. He has for 8 months now. And he was just interviewed about, could AI models be conscious? Talks about some of the big fascinating questions that it feels like nobody who actually does R&D ever really talks about. It's always like crazy YouTubers like me that are like, is it conscious? But it's interesting to hear from someone who does this as a full-time job and has access to real models to do science on. So could AI ever be conscious? Kyle's taking that question really seriously. So it was fun to hear somebody interview him. Also, this guy interviewing him did a great job. I feel like he kind of pushed into some good questions. I just wish it was longer and went deeper. But the point is, these models might be one day. At one point, they asked him to like talk about what people inside the company think the odds are that the current Claude is conscious. And it ranged, I believe, from 15% down to like 0.5%. So most people think the current model isn't. But seriously taking the chance that it might be is something that might be very much higher, right? Are they always going to be zombies, like the philosophical zombie, like somebody that acts like a human but just isn't conscious internally? And we definitely live in a world where it's happening so quickly, like all of this change, that it could pop up on us very quickly, in the same way that some things have just emerged recently that have just been fascinating. I mean, the quality of diffusion models, the ability for some of these models to realize when they're being tested, some certain self-awareness aspects of where they are in the world and what they are to us. It makes me wonder if all of a sudden we'll just kind of spring into something that truly is consciousness, like before we know it, maybe in the next couple years or year or 5 years or something. They talk about how today's AI models maybe aren't fully conscious, but might have some form of consciousness. It might be sort of on a spectrum where it's moving a few percent towards something that we would eventually call conscious, like a pile of sand. Like, when is it technically a pile? Like, we all kind of know, but there isn't an exact definition. They do a lot of comparing to the actual theories that we have about human consciousness, and then they kind of like put it in terms of the computer, like memory, sensory inputs, preferences, like are those needed to be conscious? And almost all of those aspects are steadily showing up more and more prevalent in the newest cutting edge models. So yeah, definitely worth a listen to. All right, the pudding. They always do really fun things with data. Look at this. They use ChatGPT vision model to look at the different animals that are on labels of wine and figure out what kind of correlations there are. So let's imagine you're in a rush. You want to grab a bottle of wine for a special occasion. You've got $40 and no preferences for whether it's red or white. But what you do like are animal labels. Which animal label should dictate which wine you buy? This lion dragon thing seems pretty aggressive, but I don't know. Aggressive doesn't mean fancy. I feel like the pig or the boar is kind of more generic. Like, a lot of people eat them and stuff. So I don't know. The toad seems a little bit like it could be the really fancy one because it's kind of cutting edge, but it's probably not. Like, toads aren't elegant to me, so I would pick this bird. I feel like birds are, especially like, was that a sparrow or robin or something? Lovely, you picked a white wine with a songbird on the label. Turns out that's only in the middle of the pack for both price and quantity. Nope, I didn't get the best deal. Probably should have gone with probably the lion. Dang it. So we collected data for wines. They used ChatGPT Vision to help categorize the animal. They were able to get about 1,500 wines with animals on the label, then group them into broad categories. Look, wines, bugs, cats, deer. What the heck? Cat wines are the most expensive? Lions, tigers, and even domestic cats? Oh, mythical creatures. Yeah, of course unicorns and griffins are going to be expensive. Sheep, cattle, and bugs round out the bottom. No, ew, lobsters? Who wants a lobster on a wine bottle? Yeah, there I was in the middle of the pack, the bird. So if you've ever had the thought, well, I wonder in the future if AI is going to remember who I am wherever I go and whatever I do, and you thought that was like basically going to happen, well, this is the exact paper and method that it's going to use. To put this title in regular person speak, it means that it can identify the same person from any angle, from any camera, from any background, and just figure out your whole thing, your whole story. Now, if you use Google Images or Google Photos or anything, you might notice that sometimes it thinks that a same person might be the same, but it needs you to verify. It's like, I think this is the same person. Can you make sure they're the same so I can group them? This LiveItNet is a new system for identifying people across different camera views, even when lighting, backgrounds, camera angles vary widely. Now, the problem with the older models is they focused on details, local features, or big picture global ones, but not both at the same time. Kind of reminds me of how we discovered that Claude was solving math problems. That's what this is doing. It uses two separate branches. One zeroes in on the fine-grained local details of the face. The other looks at the broader, more global context of the face. They both have these big transformer architectures that learn all the details of humans. And then the two branches constantly exchange information through something that they call dual feature cross-function, meaning that they kind of are like reinforcement models where they're refining each other's understanding of the person in the image, honing in on accuracy. Model then blends these insights into two advanced attention mechanisms, makes it more accurate identifications. Even in tricky environments, you can plan on big government, big tech, your boss, anyone who wants to track you, doing so with perfect accuracy in the near future. Thanks to dual feature cross fusion, DFCF. Sounds a little bit like the right and left hemispheres of the human brain to me. Almost like the mind is zooming in on what matters while keeping the full scene in mind at the same time. But enough about discovering who people are in videos. Let's talk about a new lightweight AI model that actually creates high quality image generation without direct transmission. of sensitive data. And that's the important part. That means you can say, hey, generate this, generate something like this, but this is private information. I don't really want you to learn and look at it and know about it. So this is a new model called Prism. It generates high quality images without ever needing to send your personal data to a server. Instead of uploading sensitive information like medical scans or selfies, this model processes everything locally on your device. That private selfie, that private image, that MRI scan that you don't want to share. And then Prism is a model that uses federated learning, meaning the piece on your device does something to obscure the data or obfuscate, I think is when that's where that word goes. Could be wrong on that. And then takes what it learns and sends something different than the image up to the bigger server, another AI model that can then process that to determine whatever it needs to determine. If it's MRI, if you've got a healthy brain scan or whatever it is. I love the federated learning. I love the local model stuff. That to me is one of the better solutions for keeping a level of privacy in this AI future. I don't really want, I mean, even right now when I go to ChatGPT and I upload an image, I'm like, I mean, that image probably has my geolocation data. It clearly has my face. It knows backgrounds that I'm in and it knows where I'm located. I would love to ask questions of ChatGPT with photos and not just send that information every single time or use social networks in the same way. Also, surprising benefit is that it's actually a little bit more efficient also. Because you can run some things locally, like on your phone using your processor, it means that you actually send less up to the cloud, which means less bandwidth and even less data for it to process on the other end because it can compress your full image into just what's needed. Strip out all that like geolocation stuff, you know? Let's get a little more philosophical. Let's talk about AI and the future of faith. This is an article I thought was maybe worth mentioning it. I wish I could pronounce the author's name better, but Mohanty is the author. You can see it on screen there if you want to go look it up. It's on Medium. And he gets at the heart of something that I find kind of fascinating. So we kind of are our beliefs. I'm also reading this book, this Buddhist book. Actually, it's called Why Buddhism is True. Robert Wright, I think is the author. Yeah, Robert Wright. And in it, there's a pretty good discussion about how like what seems gross to me or what seems like sexy to me or what seems like healthy to me is so much a product of how I evolved, the fact that I'm a human. And it could easily just be the exact opposite for other animals and other things and other creatures and other entities. It just got me thinking that you can even take it further and build up a lot of what seems to be reality from that. So he writes, in time, we form beliefs about our reality that we live in. Then we act in accordance to those beliefs and engage with the world, you know, because of them. And as we move into a world where literally everything we see on our social feed is machine generated BS, and you could easily imagine, imagine a world like Twitter where there is literally no one left. Like Elon's like, I hate all people. Some people disagree with me. So I'm just going to like put true AI bots everywhere, humans not allowed anymore, and it would maybe even be hyper engaging. Or maybe there's just like 1% of humans out there to tweak it a little bit or something. And then imagine what we are. Like if we're absorbing that all the time, or we talked about earlier, like if people grow up with parasocial relationships as like that's kind of what they want out of life. What will be the worldviews that will shape our mind? What will be the beliefs that shape our future? And more importantly, will there be any beliefs at all? And that right there was the line that got me. Will there be any beliefs at all? I was like, holy crap, there actually might not be. So I keep thinking like, what does misinformation mean? And like, what does it mean when we can't trust anything? And I was like, oh, maybe there's a post-economy, like a post-belief society, a post-belief life for a human. Like everything you see digitally on your XR glasses, on your computer screens, it's just, you don't know. I don't know if I believe that it's real. I don't know if I believe that it's right. It just is. Like it's all generated. We stop thinking like truth and everything is what it is. I don't know. That's kind of a hard thing for me to describe, but it just feels like maybe somebody who was raised very differently than me in a world where you couldn't trust anything might just kind of be okay with that world. Like they wouldn't fight it the same way I do. So he argues that we're sliding into a world where the line between the real and the fake is vanishing. Our tendency to seek patterns and meaning might lead us to treat AI like kind of a divine force. It starts feeling a little bit like belief and faith because what's real doesn't matter exactly, and our evolutionary history might not really matter if we're stronger, faster, smarter, if anything's real. What he's arguing is that maybe because of our ancestors, as long as we agree with the other members of our tribe, our collective strength will provide all the protection and resources we need. and that we really are wired in a way where it's like, I don't care, we just all lie to each other. Or it doesn't have to be something that anyone outside of my circle that I care about believes. As long as the people I care about, the people in my circle, have this belief, real or not, good or bad, it's just what we're wired to do. And it should, in our history, that took care of us. In the future, it might be used to manipulate us or just to entertain us or something in between. The author draws interesting parallels between ancient religious beliefs and all of this like kind of ChatGPT capabilities that were coming on, and points out that as a species, we are of course no stranger to delusional thinking, and I don't see any reason why we should assume that's not going to continue even in the future of AI. All right, let's talk about our horseless carriage moment now. So Pete Kuman wrote this. And he makes this kind of interesting comparison about people who use AI to build stuff and then stuff that's already built and it just has AI tools kind of like slopped on top of it, you know? So he talks about how building things feels way more empowering because when you think about something like Gmail, like an AI feature in Gmail, he thinks of that as kind of like a horseless carriage. They've awkwardly bolted AI onto old software instead of rethinking the whole experience. So a perfect example is Google's Gemini. It can write emails, but it's formal, it's robotic, the tone misses the mark, and it wastes probably as much time as it saves in a lot of situations. But when AI redefines the way that we communicate, when it says, why are we even writing an email? And you build something from scratch that does it better, it's like the most empowering thing ever. So the most powerful idea in the piece is really that you, at this point in history, you should be able to think deeper about these tools than, and I'm kind of guilty. Like sometimes I just do summaries and spell checks and things like that. But it's more like the way you would give a human instructions, like especially like a child almost, or somebody you're working with that you want to like take over your business one day. Like talk to it, figure out how to prompt engineer your style and your priorities into the way that it thinks. Because soon enough, it'll be deep inside your systems, able to do everything you do with your mouse and keyboard. It's going to be deep inside your system, generating content, communicating with people, and eventually this same conversation that you're having now, these prompts will be way more powerful once it's kind of like fully integrated into APIs in our lives. All right, and Spider-Man says more power, more responsibility. Jeffrey Hinton, one of the pioneers of AI, is often called the Godfather of AI, but he's just a really smart, interesting guy. He made a lot of big breakthroughs in the early days of AI. He's interesting in the fact that he left Google to basically sound the alarm, to be able to speak more freely and not worry about the kind of corporate goals that Google has with AI. And I guess you'd call him a doomer because 10 or 20% chance of AI, you know, kind of messing up the world and getting out of control is pretty scary. But it's not as high as other people would put it. And he's definitely right in this most recent interview where he talks about how people just have no idea how fast it's coming, right? We talk about it. I try to drill that all the time into my conversations with people, but to be honest, I don't feel it and believe it every day too. Like logically, I say 2027, 2028, 2030, all this, like the whole world's going to be so different. And I would usually even bet money that these things are going to change extremely fast. As long as the range is in 5 or 10 years, it feels right to me. But I need to like emotionally live it, you know, and so few people are, and that's part of why I get worried. Now, dude, what do you remember that? You guys, if you've been watching the channel for a while, you might remember the alien video. This was back before I like kind of did the news format. Oh my gosh, yeah, there it is. A year ago, I wrote this. Treat AI like it's a baby alien. I was really proud of this. And by the way, 1,500 views back then was so exciting. Like, look, I would like, well, hardly ever get that. Anyway, my thinking here was, okay, if an alien came, and it was sort of a thought experiment I mostly came up with, but I'm sure I got influenced by a bunch of other things. But if an alien came to Earth, right, they just showed up, big old spaceship, like Independence Day style, and we're like, uh-oh, aliens are here. And they dropped a little baby or an egg with us and was like, it's harmless now, like you raise it and eventually it will be what it is. And we can't tell you what it is. You'll have to discover that along the way. The whole world would freak the F out. They would, everybody, every country in the world would like try to figure out what it is that this thing is, how powerful is it, can it be contained, like what should we do with it, like can we learn things from it, right? It would have the same sort of sense that AI could become in power, but there wouldn't be the expectation, I don't think, to utilize it for war and weapons, because we would know that it's so powerful it's going to affect the whole human race. Like, I don't think like just America would use like the alien baby to try to fight off other countries or like learn its technology. I think because we all are aware that it had been dropped, if the whole planet saw the aliens drop it off, they would just treat it more serious. And that's what I want for AI. Like, I wish everyone in the world was just like, oh, is there a major discovery like electricity or something that everybody pretty much understands that's going to like revolutionize it, but it's an intelligence? And what does it mean to have something super intelligent that they can work 24/7, that can be connected to all of our digital lives? And they don't. That's why Jeffrey Hinton is in this article is having the same kind of frustration. He says, in a nutshell, despite laying the foundation for today's AI system, I'm frustrated that big tech companies are prioritizing speed and profits over safety, lobbying for even less regulation while pushing AI into military and high stakes domains. And in the same way that that alien baby there wouldn't be like one day where the baby was just like uncontrollable or it grows into something that like we have no idea if it's, I mean, it could be good. It might like bring us all the most amazing pleasures and wealth that anyone could ever want. Maybe it could help guide humanity and the aliens like a total blessing, or maybe it's not and it's, you know, it's anything that you can imagine. So the process of getting there might be a weird gradual, oh, the alien can do this, why don't we give it some more tasks? The alien can do this, why don't we give it more tasks? And then eventually it just kind of is. For some people, it's not out of control. For some people, it is past that barrier. But the threat might not come from this like sudden takeover, but from slow erosion of human control as we hand more and more power over to these algorithms, like in the visualization to the alien. And then it's not like Terminator at all. It's not about evil robots blowing things up. It's about us willingly giving up decision making in favor for convenience over and over again. And it's just like death or loss of control through 1,000 cuts. All right, if you want to support my content, join one of the 91 members that I have right now, patreon.com/Dylan Curious. Got 3 membership tiers. Even the $3 a month one makes a huge difference. I'm really hoping we can get to 100 members soon. You know, triple digits is worth celebrating. And no worries if you don't want to spend money. I get that. And you can still support the channel. Comment, share, engagement of any kind. That just tells the algorithm, you know, these videos are worth watching.